So you've been searching for a while on how to develop, find, or change your art style. You've watched several videos and read your fair share of articles tackling this subject. And finally, you're here thinking, this sophisticated and charming fella looks like he has all the answers. Well, I don't. For those curious enough to stay, the reason I said that I don't have an answer is because I think the concern or question is too broad. It's pretty much unanswerable. But what I can do is nudge you in the right direction so that eventually you'll be able to answer that question for yourself. That question being, what is my art style? I think some of us tried to find shortcuts or cheat codes when it comes to learning art so that we can level up our own characters as quickly as possible, but it just doesn't work that way. There are no performance enhancing drugs when it comes to art. But much like going to the gym, developing your art isn't just about doing as many reps as possible. Resting and diet are just as important as lifting heavy things. So let's break that down. Here's a handy triangle that separates the three elements that go into developing your art and finding your art style: lifting, diet, and rest. For when you're lifting the heavy things, that's when you're studying the fundamentals. But there's a right way and a wrong way to study. In the same way that you have to keep an eye on your form when you're pushing, pulling, and grunting, you have to keep an eye on the gaps in your own knowledge when it comes to art. You can't learn everything all at once, and there isn't necessarily a starting point when it comes to learning how to improve. So the moment that you start to become angry when you're drawing, you need to recognize what it is that made you angry. Try and be as specific as possible, because the more specific you are, the easier it is to find the answers that you're looking for. Maybe it's the nose of your character that pushed you over the edge, or the way that you've posed them, or maybe your lines look crap. Whatever it is, identify that one thing and then practice that one thing. Only practice for a short while, until you get bored, basically. We're not machines, and I'm not going to prescribe a specific amount of time to learn a specific thing, because again, that's not really how it works. Even if you spend 2 weeks flat out studying noses, you won't suddenly become a master of noses and never have to think about drawing them ever again. I wish it did work like that, because it would make things a lot easier and a lot more straightforward, but it doesn't. Now, on to diet. You could plan out your diet and make sure that your next 20 meals are accounted for, or you could just change one thing. I'm a big fan of changing one little thing because it's easier, less effort, and it's more likely to stick in the long term. I'm talking about looking at other people's art here, by the way. That's sort of the diet part, because you're consuming other people's work. Yum, yum, yum. Instead of making a Pinterest board and throwing in 100 different pieces of art, which never really helps me because I find that too overwhelming, pick like 2 or 3 pieces. But it's not good enough just to look at it. It'd be like looking at a piece of lettuce and hoping that would help. It doesn't. I've tried it and I'm still getting fat. So instead of just looking at a piece of art, you need to form an opinion on it. Write down what you like about the way that artist draws. Write literally whatever comes to mind. Then try and get a little bit more specific. Then more specific than that until you can identify one thing that you really admire about their work. For example, it could be the way that they draw hair, their color palette that they use, or the shadow shapes they use in their characters. Even if you love everything equally, pick one thing, because that one thing is the thing we're going to add to our diet. And now that you've done that, apply it to your next few drawings and see how it makes you feel. If it makes you feel bloated and awful, then try something else. But if it gives you energy and confidence, then stick with it. The final part of the triangle is probably the most literal of the three. Most artists are inspired by things other than art. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your art is just step away from it for a little while. Go and do something else that you enjoy. You can't see the wood through the trees sometimes, and so taking a step back and not overthinking can lead to inspiration and a new perspective on your own work. Art comes from you, and so you need to take care of you so that you can make the best work that you are able to make. It's all about you. The truth about finding your art style is like the truth about being an artist in general. There is no one way to learn. There is no one answer that will unlock everything for you. You don't just learn or discover a new thing once and then never have to think about it ever again. And if there is a secret or a cheat code, it's about adding little things over time until they become intuitive. And the reason why some artists make their process look so effortless is because they've done it a bajillion times, and so they don't have to be quite as conscious as you do when it comes to their own process. they've developed it over a long period of time. Also, if finding your art style is getting you down, or you feel pressured that you have to produce completely unique work, then you might be looking at people's work too much. Especially with social media, we can feel that we're in competition with one another, where we value our worth based on clicks and views. Life feels like it's on fast forward for everyone else but us, and we're going to be left behind unless we find the answers soon. But that's not reality. The reality of developing your art style is just simply enjoying drawing. I know it's not fun or necessarily inspiring to hear this, but it's true. Your art style will find you, and it will also change as you change. And the more time you put into learning and developing, the heavier weights you're going to be able to lift. As a beginner, just focus on the smaller weights. Just look at 1 or 2 areas that you can develop, change, and improve. Then over time, as your muscles have developed, you'll then be able to make a Pinterest board with 100 different artists, and you'll be able to study all of them at the same time. You'll also be able to adapt your style much more quickly because you spent the time building up your skill set by learning the fundamentals. A pretty easy way to find out when you're ready to take that next step is when you stop feeling quite so overwhelmed. It won't necessarily be easy because art rarely is, but you'll be able to tackle the challenges that are presented to you. And if you can't, then that's okay. Just switch back to the smaller weights until you're ready to move up. So breathe, take your time, have fun, and most importantly, take care of yourself. I think more than half of art development is about taking care of your mental and physical state. So if you're in a good place mentally and physically, then you're much more likely to develop more quickly than if you just panic and stress and put too much expectation on yourself. Learning art is as much of a lifestyle choice than going to the gym. And just like there, you won't see gains over days, but you'll see them over the course of years. So take your time and it will come. Like I said at the top of this video, I don't have an answer because I don't really think there is one. What I have is what has worked for me. It might not work for you, and that's fine. This process is slow, it can be painful, even annoying, but it's necessary to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if your drawings are still making you feel bad, then this video should help.